Am I the idiot for feeling upset that my wife announced her pregnancy on social media before telling me directly? I'm 29, and she is 27. We've been together for 4 years, married for 2, both from the same hometown, but currently living in a different city. She's at our hometown for a family event, and I stayed back due to work. We've been trying to get pregnant for 3 months, and now it's happened. The problem is the way I found out about it. My friend congratulated me by posting a screenshot in our group chat, a screenshot of an Instagram story posted by one of my wife's friends. The post was my wife crying and hugging some of her friends, with the caption, "You are going to be the best mom." I called her right away, and she answered pretty quickly, saying, "I have news, babe." All I said was, "I know you're pregnant." She replied, "Wow, babe, how did you know?" I just said, "Saw it on Insta." "Didn't think to call me first, huh?" she said. "What?" "I didn't post anything." I responded, "Yeah, but your friends did. That's one way to find out I'm going to be a dad. Thanks," and I hung up. I was furious. She kept calling me, and I didn't answer until my sister called shortly after. My sister asked me what was going on because she'd just arrived at my in-laws' house, and everyone was freaking out, fighting, and my wife was locked up in her room. I told her what happened, and she said, "There's no way she would do that." I replied, "Well, she did." My sister said she was going to find out what was going on. A little later, my sister called me back and explained everything. At that point, I'd calmed down, thinking it was just a crappy friend who decided to post without permission. But my sister filled me in on the details. My wife was late on her period. And while hanging out with a friend, they thought, "What if you're already pregnant?" So they bought a bunch of pregnancy tests, all of which came out positive. They freaked out, told her parents, and then texted some friends in town to come over. From the time she found out to the time her friend posted on Instagram, only 2 hours had passed. My wife told at least 10 people before telling me. For the record, my sister told me that the argument going on when she arrived was because the other friends were upset with the one who posted on Instagram. Apparently they all thought it was a shitty thing to do, and were mad at her. But they also couldn't understand why my wife hadn't told me sooner. I finally called my wife, and she was crying. She apologized and said she'd been planning to surprise me, which was why she hadn't told me yet. I was skeptical and pointed out that if she'd really wanted to surprise me, she wouldn't have been ready to tell me right when I called. She went silent, and I told her I needed some time to think. She yelled, saying I couldn't just walk away, and that we needed to talk about it. I replied, "Why do we need to talk? So you can lie again?" And I hung up. A ton of people have been messaging me, but I'm honestly exhausted. I don't know why, but this has drained me. I've cried randomly, which is unusual for me. I'm not a crier. This isn't supposed to be a huge deal, but it feels like I've been hit by a truck. My sister sent me a message that really stuck. "Hey, I know this sucks, and it was crappy of her. But don't let this ruin it for you. You're going to be a dad. You're going to be an amazing dad. This is great. The only thing keeping me going right now is knowing that I'm going to be a dad. I've dreamed of this. And all I hope is that this baby is healthy. I'll probably swallow my pride and pretend I'm fine just to avoid making my wife too emotional during the pregnancy. But I'll do that tomorrow. Tonight I'll just sulk." Edit. I posted this into the Reddit void, thinking nothing of it, and woke up to thousands of comments and dozens of DMs. Holy shit. Thank you so much for caring. Just to clarify a couple things. Do I think the baby might not be mine? Classic Reddit LOL. No chance she cheated. She works from home and we have home security cameras inside the house, so that's not happening in our house. She does not do girls' nights. Her best friend in the city we live in is a female coworker of mine, and we hang out, the three of us, often. They text each other a lot but almost never hang out one-on-one. If they do, it's at our house with me in the next room. Also, my wife is the clingiest person alive. Like when I'm at work, she texts me every 30 minutes. And when I'm at home, she is always at least in the same room I'm in, if she isn't cuddling up to me. When we are out, she is always holding my arm, my hand, literally does not leave my side. I honestly actually love it most of the time. I feel loved. But it is too much sometimes, and we had a fight about it weeks ago. I even questioned if this fight was the reason she didn't tell me right away. But it's probably not it. On her friends, they are all very nice people. I've known them for a long time now. My sister is part of the friend group, and some of them have been friends since they were like 12. My wife is the only one that lives in a different city, so they always hang out a lot when she is in town. I cannot emphasize enough how out of character this whole situation is for her. She has many flaws like every other person, but being inconsiderate is not one of them. That's why I woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling like I'm actually completely wrong on this, because she would not do this on purpose. There is no way. So I sent her a text just saying that everything is fine, and that I will drive the 4 hours down there to talk. She was actually awake and asked if she could call. She did and said she wanted to come home. I said that I was going over there to pick her up. She asked, "Are we okay?" I just said yes, and she started to cry. I told her that I'm very happy, and am dying to see her, but we will need to talk about it. Comments. Comment 1. Some people feel this need to share everything, I guess. I don't understand it either. But I've seen it happen so much. When my husband died unexpectedly, my in-laws posted it on Facebook almost immediately upon my telling them. In the aftermath, I was agonizing over how to tell his daughter, so imagine my surprise when I get a sympathy text from one of them telling me how sorry she is. They had to find out their dad died from Facebook. I normally don't make waves with that family, but I was livid and ended up tearing the one that did it a new one. Comment 2. I know friends can be difficult firsthand to tell about pregnancies, and it brings out the worst in some people. My husband and I are immigrants, but we were lucky to have a close group of friends we connected with from the local kids group. All our kids were about 1 to 2. We invited them to dinner, was paying for it ourselves. When we felt it was time, I took my drink, stood up and said I had an announcement. The husband of a friend blurted, "What? You're pregnant?" I felt so crestfallen, and just said yeah, and sat down. I spent the rest of the dinner with everyone congratulating him on guessing correctly. 12 years later, and I still feel so sour. Update. When I got to my in-laws, my wife was sitting on the sidewalk waiting for me. She jumped on me and kept apologizing, just hugging me and saying how sorry she was. We went to her room, and I told her I was really tired and wanted a nap before our talk. We slept holding each other. When we woke up, our talk felt like an endless circle, me asking what happened, and her saying that she was stupid, and that it was her fault. She kept saying it didn't matter what happened, because she screwed up a big moment in our lives. I kept asking, but she just repeated that she messed up and that nothing else mattered. Eventually she said she didn't want to give me excuses and that the right thing for her to do was take responsibility and apologize. I eventually gave in, told her she was forgiven, and said everything was fine. Still, I went to talk to her friend, the one who was with her all day, and bought the pregnancy test with her. Her story was that, right after my wife tested positive, they spent about an hour freaking out and talking about ways to tell me or surprise me. Eventually my mother-in-law got home, and they told her. Together they decided to invite their girlfriends over to discuss ways to tell me. The friend went over all their ideas, and I 100% believe her. She also said it was discussed with the group that I didn't know yet, and that they should all keep quiet for now, because we hadn't decided when to announce it. She says the one girl who posted it on Instagram absolutely did it on purpose. She had been told not to say anything to anyone, and at that point they were even discussing ways to tell me with her. The picture she posted was taken when another friend had just arrived and heard the news. For some reason she decided to post about it right then and there. Apparently when they confronted her, she initially claimed she didn't know she wasn't allowed to post it. She stuck to that lie for a while, but eventually she just told everyone she didn't give a shit, and left. She blocked everyone in the group, and we haven't heard from her since. No one knows why she did it. They don't know if she's jealous of my wife or something else. At this point we don't care. She's blocked on our end too, and we want no contact with her. My sister later confirmed the friend's story. When she first called me with details, she was under the impression my wife had just told everyone and forgot to tell me. But after talking to other friends and my mother-in-law, she told me basically the same story. I was also told by the friend I spoke to, my mother-in-law, and another friend, that when I called my wife, she basically said, "Screw it, I'm telling him right now," and was super excited to do it. Me and my wife talked again during our trip back home, now with me having most of the details, and she told her side, basically identical to what my sister and the friend told me. She was again very apologetic and kept saying that I'm her #1 priority, and that this was one of the dumbest things she has ever done. We have a couples counseling appointment next week at her insistence. I honestly don't think it's necessary, but she believes I need a space to fully express my feelings. She's worried I forgave her too fast, and that I'm bottling everything up. Honestly, her concern about my feelings is already enough for me to forgive her, and chalk this up as a one-time thing. We also had our first appointment with an obstetrician first, because it's obviously the right thing to do, but also because many people warned me about the risks of miscarriages in early pregnancy. My wife's last period was about 6 weeks ago, and the doctor said it was a bit early for an appointment. Still, they ran a bunch of tests and confirmed my wife is indeed pregnant. So far, everything looks fine. Thank you all so much for caring about a random stranger. Now, for the next story. My neighbor connected to my Wi-Fi discovered something on a shared network, and now thinks I'm a child molester. A few months ago, my neighbor asked for my Wi-Fi password when his cable modem was on the fritz. I gave it to him and quickly forgot about it. About 2 weeks ago, I plugged an external HDD into my router so I could watch a movie on my TV. HDD had music, videos, and porn on it. For the last week, my neighbor has been cold to me. Hasn't said hello when we see each other outside. Won't let his kids play with my dogs. So I ask him, "What's up?" He went off on me. Tells me it's because I'm a pervert, he thinks I'm a child molester, and he doesn't want me near his family. I live next to this guy, we had great rapport before. Mowed each other's lawns. His kids would take my dogs for walks when I had to work late. And I had dinner with his family either at my house, or theirs 2-3x a month. We live in Texas, and my neighbor is Catholic. He goes to church every week, and has 3 daughters between the ages of 8 and 13. I can only imagine how much stress it would be to have 3 daughters to look after. I have a much younger sister. I get that he wants to look out for his family. But porn is just porn. While I wouldn't want my sister doing it, it's still fun to watch. I don't consider the porn that was on there to be anything extreme. I basically downloaded a bunch of amateur allure videos, and some generic mainstream porn videos, where the girls are 18-20-ish. Jenna Hayes' early stuff. Tory Black, Sensi Pearl. There was one video, ironically downloaded by my ex-girlfriend. That was a little light bondage, basically just a girl getting fucked while she was tied to a bed. I'm not sure what all he saw. I also had a handful of pictures from an ex-girlfriend, who was in her late 20s. On there, I wasn't in the pictures, and her face wasn't really in any of them. The pictures were tame, no action shots, just her topless and a few shots of her on all fours. We recently broke up, but I'm not sure she was around the neighborhood enough for him to recognize the pictures of her. Any suggestions for ways to fix this? I gotta live next to the guy, not willing to sell my house over this. I'm a single guy in a neighborhood full of families. It would suck if his family started spreading rumors. I'm more worried about people who don't say anything. We're a close cul-de-sac, happy hours, and BBQs with a bunch of families are common. I know a lot of the stay-at-home moms gossip like schoolgirls. Tell, drive, neighbor saw my porn drive. Now he's acting really weird. Looking for advice on how to fix things, or at least insulate myself from hurtful rumors. Edit it. His kids only have iPhones and iPads. The only way they would have seen the drive is if they were using his office computer. I can see exposing the kids to porn would be bad. I don't think that happened. Comments. Comment 1. Sometimes the purpose of a boru is to make me feel just incredibly with it, and together and absolutely nailing it by comparison, despite living a life like 5 chronically ill possums in a trench coat. My accomplishments today? I made 2 gallons of milk into a nice big pile of homemade ricotta. I made sure the milk for the mozzarella has been dosed with extra lactase to make it fully lactose-free. I remembered to give my dog her dental chew. And most importantly, I didn't keep my porn on a hard drive set to discoverable by other devices on the network, while giving out my Wi-Fi password to share with the neighbors. Not that I think this dude did that intentionally. It is, as one could say, a computer security whoopsie. But boy, what a whoopsie to have. Comment 2. I mean, I'm glad things are a bit better, but the neighbor really sounds like some stuck-up dude, and should have simply minded his business. Jumping into conclusions is naive. Update. I need to stress that I didn't want my talk with him to be about me telling him I'm right, and he's wrong, like a lot of posts suggested. I think that if you feel the need to be right, you aren't going to be a good neighbor. The approach I took was more, I need to understand why you feel the way you do. Just before lunch, I knocked on my neighbor's door and asked if I could speak with him. He wasn't happy to see me, but he agreed to come over to my house to chat. He didn't want to talk in front of his family. Fair enough. I asked him why he thought I was a child molester, and I told him I wasn't and thought that the insinuation was really potentially hurtful and damaging to my reputation in the community. I reminded him that he had met my ex-girlfriend, and she was 5 years younger than me, and that's the biggest age gap I've ever had in a relationship. I didn't deny that I had porn, and I didn't tell him it was anyone else's. But I did tell him that all the porn on the drive was legal, and that I often watched it with my ex-girlfriend. I asked him why he thought it was child porn, or if he just thought any porn meant I was some sort of deviant. His first reaction was to tell me, "I know what I saw." But when I pressed him on what it was he saw, he said, "Pictures of kids and videos of people having sex." I asked him if he had looked through the whole drive and saw context around the pictures, and he just got this disgusted look on his face. No, I didn't look through the whole drive. He claimed that he turned on a media server, and it auto-detected the media because it was still on my network, because the Wi-Fi password on the device was hard to change, and he hadn't changed it back for him when his cable modem broke. He said his kids only normally used the device for Netflix, so he had kind of forgotten about it once things were working again. His explanation seemed a little wordy, but I let him talk as long as he wanted. Anyway, it was super awkward at this point, so I offered to show him the drive again to add context. I kind of had to insist he at least look at the file structure. It was painful. Anyway, I showed him that the photos were from my past, and the only pictures of teenage girls were from my high school days, or pictures of my sister. The pictures were all arranged in folders by year, like I said in the previous post, but he said he hadn't seen them this way before. What he saw was all of the files in a unified view, without the folder structure. And he only took a quick glance at the thumbnails when he went to watch a movie with his wife and kids. It was in front of his wife and kids. Repeat, super awkward. I apologize that happened. And I am really sorry that his kids saw it. Not sure how much they would have seen given it was just thumbnails. I looked again, none of them had any graphic images in the thumbnails shown on my Mac. But who knows what was shown on his device. Or what his kids saw. I didn't show him any of the porn. But by this point he was warming up again to the idea that the whole thing was just a huge mistake and misunderstanding. I offered to let him take the drive to the cops. I was that certain there wasn't child porn on it. He said he believed me. He told me the reason he was so disgusted by porn was that it had ruined his sister's marriage, and he now had to support her. That his sister's husband would watch porn so much that he lost his job and became an alcoholic, and ended up being abusive to his wife and kids. He didn't say, but I assume physically abusive, not sexually. He told me porn set unrealistic expectations on relationships, and I would never be happy as long as I looked at it. Hey, there's some slight truth to that. For some people at least. He told me there was a support group at his church for pornography addiction, and asked me if I would be interested in going. I sheepishly told him I would check it out. That seemed to put his mind at ease. He said he was sorry he jumped to conclusions. Candidly, I don't know if I believe his story 100%. I know my TV only shows titles, not thumbnails. I've seen the boxed and We'd Live interfaces. We'd Live I think shows previews of the clips, but doesn't show images and videos in the same display view. Also, the router wasn't set up as a Dailary server, just a network share. So who knows? I still feel like he probably snooped. But it's possible his kids saw something through their media server. So of course I don't have any intention of going to a porn support group. But I did get the contact info from him for the guy who runs it. I might exchange a few emails. And then tell him the times don't work and see if he can suggest another group at another church to go to. Then just drop it. We'll see. Tell Drive. Had a good talk with my neighbor. Things aren't 100% fixed. But at least he's not under the impression I am looking to molest kids anymore. But I may have to go to church. Edit. Wanted to put a little more down about what he told me. His speech was basically, you won't be able to get married or experience true love if you are still loving to other women. Even pictures of women, to get off. You can't have porn in a happy marriage. I don't agree 100%. But I do think the guy's heart is in the right place. As much as Reddit hates on religious people, it was kind of sweet to hear things like that said in 2013. And this whole thing has got me thinking more about the context of information. Not to get all political, but I am terrified more than ever about the NSNL. They see a snapshot, take it the wrong way, and poof, you're on your way to Guantanamo. I know everyone on Reddit feels the same way, but I sure hope we turn things around again in America. Privacy is a great thing,